Good evening. I think we might have everyone here. Let's see. No, we're missing two. One. Missing one. Rob scoots around down there and I don't know where he is down there. Well, we're really glad that we all got here tonight before the rain started. And as I walked in with my umbrella, Joe says, "I see you have your umbrella." He says, "Mine will be in the car when I need it." But hopefully we won't have to use it to leave here tonight. Robin, may we have roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. All right, Commissioner Hensick is not here. Chair Stevens,
I'm here.
Commissioner Scott.
Present.
That was momentous. Commissioner Hammond,
Here.
Secretary Roughton,
Here.
Vice Chair Bockert,
Present.
Commissioner Rubus,
Here.
Alternate Quarterneck,
Here.
Commission Liaison Broyles is not here. Council Member Liaison Nyon,
Here.
Council Member Liaison Rambo,
Here.
and our Student Route 66 Task Force Liaison Nolan Myers.
Here.
All right, we have quorum.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And tonight I'm asking Steve Scott to please lead us in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Well, as is normal, I'm anticipating some good discussions tonight. Oh, suddenly I lost my signal. Everybody did, I guess. Okay. It's a very interesting agenda that we have for tonight. And as always, it's always very exciting. So keep your thinking caps on and we'll entertain all of your comments. Approval of the minutes from the February 23rd meeting. Are there any additions or corrections that anyone found? Well, hearing none, they are approved by general consent. Is there any public comment, Travis?
No, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so old business, our first item is Student Route 66 Task Force update.
All right, Madam Chair, we are going to play a video at this time. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, if you ever plan to motor west, take my way, that's the highway, that's the plan. Get your kicks on Route 66.
Hi, I'm Sydney,
Hi, I'm Abu.
and we are from the Route 66 Student Task Force. Help us celebrate the birthday of Route 66 by participating in some exciting events this April, such as an outdoor movie premiere of Cars. Bring a car, bring a chair, and bring a friend.
We are also hosting a scavenger hunt to promote our awesome strip of Route 66. There will be amazing prizes for pet lovers, ice cream lovers, and everyone in between, all donated by Wildwood businesses.
Well, if you ever plan to motor west,
I believe our task force liaison has a report for us.
Thank you. Nolan?
Yeah, so that was the bulk of what we did at our last meeting was making that video, and at the meeting before I had talked about how we were planning this video to be made. And so took us to the planning. We were using a group chat to kind of coordinate, and we had been planning this out, and we finally got to film it at our last meeting. And so that was mainly the bulk of what we did for the pre-show at our Cars movie.
Yeah. It's going to be exciting.
So if I may, I would just like to encourage all of you. Part of the reason we made sure to get our second round of Route 66 t-shirts out is because we are celebrating Route 66 month up here in April. And so your job is to help us as ambassadors of the commission and the corridor to promote these events, get the word out, generate some energy and some buzz. And as you can see before you this evening, you have the official Route 66 month guide, including all 30 clues, which, by the way, they are not officially released yet, not until April 1st. So you can see what we have in store for those who might be roaming our corridor during the month of April. There's also lots of opportunities for bonus points, wearing Route 66 themed clothing. You know, maybe that will encourage them to buy the Route 66 t-shirts. I don't know. Bethel Church has actually agreed to have antique vintage cars at our Route 66 movie night. So there's an opportunity for some bonus points. Even submitting your own rendition of Get Your Kicks on Route 66 can get you some bonus points. So hopefully you're as excited about these events as we are, and you'll get the word out for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Going to be a fun month. Anything else on Route 66? If not, we'll move on to the Wildwood History Book.
All right, I'll give a more formal presentation on this one. So we have been very, very busy behind the scenes with the Wildwood History Book. Chapters 1 through 7 have now been reformatted by our graphic designer. All she is doing at this point is putting together the final supplemental pages, including our timeline and appendices and things of that nature. Ms. Von Gruben has actually already reviewed half of that material because we wanted to go back and just ensure that everything got formatted correctly. So she's about halfway through and she just went home with the next batch of pages today. So we're doing very well according to our current timeline. However, what was especially exciting and before you this evening is that that final chapter, chapter 7, the photo essay, was completed by our graphic designer. So now you are seeing it actually laid out as it will be in our history book. So tonight we ask for your comments, any potential critiques, and hopefully your go ahead in saying that, yes, this is how we want to proceed with our Wildwood History Book. Thank you.
Any comments on this tonight? A great job. Pardon? Coming up next, yes.
Are there any comments for us this evening?
I proofread it.
Okay, well, I should have followed up by saying we will accept your comments and review for the next week following, as we usually do. So please try to return those to me by next Friday, if you will. And I will submit them to our graphic designer. But hopefully you're generally pleased with the layout.
Looks excellent.
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right.
Hey,
Is
Thank
this the size? This will be the size of the book?
Yes, it will be
Amazing.
8.5 by 11. I believe we're making it both hard bound and paperback. So there will be options. And we're also doing an e-book format as well.
Will it be ready by Great Wildwood?
We are trying very hard to
So we
meet
could-
that deadline. That is our current target, and that's why I'm excited about where we are right now.
anyone else? Okay, let's move on to Madison Valley and the plaque that we've been talking about.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Our third item on the agenda this evening is our Madison Valley Memorial Plaque. At the end of this discussion at our last meeting, members directed the department that we would like to go ahead with a Wildwood Historic Community Marker type for the memorial plaque. And we also received some direction as to preferences in location. So since we had that meeting, I have reached out to InGraphics, which is the architectural signage company that worked with us for the last batch of Wildwood Historic Community Markers. And I've requested a number of quotes from them, depending on whether we want our marker to be two-sided, one-sided, have a visual depiction, etc. I have not yet received their cost estimate because their fabricator is no longer with them, who was responsible for the signs last time. So they are going out to inspect the signs so that they have the right specifications when they make the quote. So that's where that is right now. Once I have those numbers, I will forward them to the commission for your review. Oh, and my understanding is that there's two different ways they can etch the visual onto the marker, and I couldn't begin to describe those methods, but that will come next as well when we get that cost estimate. So secondly, we began our discussion on location, and at this point, thank you. At this point, Mr. Newberry has brought up the map before you with our flags. And at the last commission meeting, I think generally everybody was very supportive of the yellow flag location, which was a strip of land owned by the city as part of a bridge project and just north of Madison Valley and west of Wild Horse Creek Road. We have since met with the director of the Department of Public Works, and he also agrees that that is an ideal location for the marker. He discouraged us from the white flag location because of it being in a floodplain. He expressed a little bit of concern about possible security issues with it being on Wild Horse Creek Road. And he did second that Babbler State Park might be a good secondary location to look into. So we did reach out to those appropriate parties at Babbler State Park, and it's currently undergoing their review process, which I assume is probably going to involve a few individuals. So that's where that is at. Our next step is once that comes back to us and we know what locations we have to work with, that's when we'll start scheduling site visits with this commission. Do you have any questions before I move on to the third item, sub-item of this agenda item? Do you have any questions about those two updates? Okay. All right, then my third item is the department has drafted an initial content for the historic marker honoring Elijah Madison. That content is before you this evening. We're going to bring it up on the screen in a condensed version. I've also included the charcoal depiction of Elijah Madison, and that source was from the Missouri Historical Society. So it was very challenging weeding down Elijah Madison's life into what you see before you. I had to examine what we did for our past community markers and assess word count and kind of have my target range. Also thinking about if we were going to try to incorporate that visual depiction, how much room that would take up as well. So please do excuse anything that may appear to be omitted this evening in this description. We are inviting your heavy critique because we do plan a pretty broad review process around this content. So if you do have any suggestions for how to improve upon this, we do welcome them because our next step will be taking it out to the broader community and getting that feedback. So with that, I will invite any comments from the commission. And of course, you will also have time to send me your comments over the next week as well.
Adult is serving. Give him his freedom.
That is correct. I believe the exchange was a 3-year commitment and then they were offered their freedom as part of that service.
Is the text that on the screen, that could fit on the plaque, both sides or one side?
It would definitely require 2 sides. And it is under the word count that we had for Centaur. So I think generally, I think it will be challenging, and I think we might get to the point where we have to think about some possible additional cuts. But I think this is a really good word count to start with. But we would be looking at a 2-sided marker with this.
He says Biggie's buried in the Mount Pleasant Church Cemetery. Is that the cemetery that's there on Madison Valley? Is he buried there or not buried there?
He is not buried there.
Okay.
He actually, I remember reading in Karen Fox's article, which was included in your packet this evening, that he apparently was a preacher for the Mount Pleasant Baptist Church for a while as well. So that's probably why he ended up getting buried there.
Now, are we just going to zero in on Elijah Madison? Or are we going to have some reference to other Blacks in that area?
I tried to include some verbiage in that last sentence where I mentioned
With his
Madison's brother and then also talked about the many others in the area who also were.
I don't know if it was in Karen's article, which I thought was an excellent article, or if it was in one of the other ones, but it named several others that went in about the same time he did. And I thought maybe that would be something we could incorporate into it.
I believe that's right, but I think there was always kind of that spirit of, while we're focusing in on Elijah Madison, recognizing the larger history that so many African Americans in this area did earn their freedom by fighting for the Union during the Civil War. But Elijah Madison, according to Karen Fox's article, so this, I really enjoyed her article as well. And I just recently had the opportunity and pleasure to read it. But apparently the fact that he was a corporal was a big deal because that was not offered to too many in his situation. So he must have really exhibited quite a bit of leadership to have earned that. Yes.
I thought it was just maybe 4 or 5 others that were named, and they were people who settled here in the area. and continued on living here. And that would just be a little tribute to the community as a whole.
Yeah.
Even though we are saying it's Madison Valley for the road, but it incorporates the other people as well.
I've made that note and we'll see what we can do.
Anyone else? Dan?
Another alternative would be to reverse our thought. Talk more about the community with a line that talks about him and a road named in his honor nearby. But focus on the community with that adder versus focusing on him in a line that talks about the community. You could just flip flop that.
Else? Rob?
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment, actually. You have an unenviable job to try to, condense all this history down onto a single plaque, and I recognize that completely. And I love the references to how tough his service actually was. And I like the fact that we're identifying Madison Valley, the road, but the original intent was we're getting rid of something that refers to Old Slave Road, and there's a lot of slavery related history.
Yeah.
And I would hate to feel as though we're whitewashing that. And so I don't know what you can do, but I think that's an appropriate approach, is to, try to change the focus.
Okay. I will see what I can do.
– 1979.
Right. It was actually a fairly recent. Mhm.
Right.
There was no room. It was put in then. Looking back at the historic St. Louis County maps and Google, you go back 1970, there was no road there.
Yes.
So. And
Not. Right. Yes, I think, but I do understand what you're saying about focusing on that community there versus focusing too hard on Elijah Madison and specifically. Yes.
Well, the Coleman one was north of Wild Horse Creek. Remember, we went out there for a site visit from the Jesuit center that was out there. That was on the Coleman plantation, and that was north of Wild Horse.
I will admit that while I have learned quite a lot in my 2 years here as your liaison, I do not consider myself a historian of Wildwood. So please don't mind if I do not speak off the cuff about things I am not deeply knowledgeable about.
yeah, I think perhaps maybe those last two paragraphs, by not leaving anything out, could be more emphasizing on the fact that this is an area where there were numerous African-American farms that were started and maintained by ex-slaves in the area, something like that. And I don't know, people here can sit down there and try to, they want to rewrite those two paragraphs. I'll see what I can do. And
I'm happy if you
but
want
I
to,
just think
if you
maybe
want to
make it
offer.
more of the last two paragraphs, get all that information in, but also add something about the community there of the farmers there.
I think what I can do is perhaps for our next meeting, I can present you a couple different options of ways we can go with it, and then we can compare and contrast at that time. Does that work for this commission?
Can you just, I realize you're talking to the potential plaque builders and just try to get an estimate on them as to how much lead time they need. I mean, I realize the city council has said, hey, this needs to be done by the end of the year. And we, as the collective, we here can drag it out another 6 months. So if we got a deadline that we've got to have it done by, maybe throw some dates at us.
Well, I think when they come back with more definitive information for me, that's when we'll have that discussion. I already did talk about that general timeline with them, and they said they could definitely accommodate that. But as far as deadlines for you as a commission, I do not have that. I assume that we'll probably be doing this review process for a few months, at least. So, and I do think we have some time built in as long as we're kind of looking at all the pieces together.
Anyone else? Yes, Dan.
I guess with the number of words you have and the addition of some words and less focus on the individual and more on the community, I think it pretty much drops the picture off.
Yes, if I was focusing on the community more than the individual, then I think we would lose the visual depiction as part of that.
Yeah, I think it would be hard to get from this charcoal sketch to get a good picture of him, representation of him on there. I don't think that's necessary.
Do you generally agree with the approach of coming back to this commission with a couple different alternatives for verbiage, and then we can look at them side by side? Okay, with that, that's all I have on this topic this evening. So if there are no other questions. All right, thank you.
Thank you. The next item, I believe, is Westland Acres. We have a change of people,
Yes, ma'am.
please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair and members of the commission, as you know, for the last couple of months, we've been talking about the work program project that involves the historic community of Westland Acres. As part of that, we've created a series of steps. The first was, for the most part, to kind of set what we called the steps in the process. And then at our February meeting, we kind of set the goals associated with each of those steps. And so tonight, the department is presenting for your consideration as the commission what it likes to believe are the immediate actions that we would need to take to kind of move the project from discussion here at our commission meetings to the Westland Acres community. I would consider those the sub-steps. And the first is to arrange an informal meeting, so to speak, with the principals that have resided or generationally been part of Westland Acres for many, many years. In the memorandum, the department identifies the pastor of Union Baptist Church, the Frasers, and the Westfalls. Those two families, along with Union Baptist Church, have been the anchors in the Westland Acres community for many, many, many decades. And the thought is to first meet with them, explain face-to-face, one-to-one, what the intent of this particular project is, and hopefully hear their support, their concerns, their input, etc. It would not be until that meeting is held that we would then engage the entirety of the Westland Acres community. And Robin was kind enough to prepare a draft letter that we would consider sending to all property owners within the boundaries of Westland Acres, again, acknowledging that half is in the city of Chesterfield and the other half is not. I think it's also important to note when we do meet with
that group of property owners and the church, we should include, obviously as directed by the commission, a representative or representatives from the city of Chesterfield. I think it's only fair they be kept abreast of what we intend to do, and hopefully they will be a participant along with us. Thereafter, the letter would be sent, and then we would kind of step back for just a bit and kind of assess what we've heard. And then from there, make our plan for how we begin the process of memorializing what is a rich history of an area of the West St. Louis County, now the city of Wildwood. In terms of that first sub-step, I think it's incumbent, at least from the department's perspective, that we don't overwhelm the community and have 12 people there. And so I was hoping the commission would concur that the chair and maybe a select member or two of the commission, along with the chair, would kind of lead that effort, along with the support of the city's Department of Planning. So from that perspective, there could be up to 5 of us that would attend that meeting, and the chair would obviously select the commission members based upon either availability, interest, or both. And then that's where we would start. So tonight, the department is respectfully requesting support of those sub-steps, so to speak, and also giving Ms. Stevens, our chair, the authority to select a couple of other commission members to initiate that process. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions and comments? I would like to insert here that this evening I shared a book with Robin, and it is the history of Westland Acres. And it has the family trees in it. It's unbelievable. A friend said, would you be interested in reading this? She didn't know that we were working on anything for Westland Acres. And she's not even a resident of Wildwood any longer, but she has been in early times. And no, and I don't know what year. Does it say in there on title page or anything, or on the forward, a date of when that was done? As I say, I just got it Tuesday, and I was copying it at home, so it took a while.
The first line says, I met Doris Frazier over the telephone in 1981 when, as a historic research, I was under contract. So. And then it's dated 1987. Judy Machon. And then there is an addendum. So the history was not completed in its entirety. So then in 1991, Cynthia Sutton, a member of the Union Baptist Church, was asked to revise part 1 to edit it, add and delete its content, and complete the remaining pages necessary for this history to be published. So it looks like a combination of efforts for those involved in the community.
No, I don't think it was that. She was, Judy was contacted, or Judy contacted Doris, one or the other, and it went from there. I think she even, from what I read, I think she even moved here for a period of time while she was doing all the interviews and writing, and then she had to leave. And that's when they asked the other person to help in. But it's a wealth of information, and I just hope that it's available a lot of places and wasn't just a half dozen things that were, it was a spiral bound book. But
Well, Madam Chair, I don't know if I have good news or bad news, but we actually have a copy of that particular book. When the development community began considering rezoning Westland Acres for future housing, we were able to obtain a copy of the book. I'm sure there's copyright laws, but we could certainly do our best to get that available to each of you if you'd like to have something.
well, as we always were told at school, you can do a classroom set of things without breaking the copyright law.
Sounds like
So
we've
I
got
hope that
a,
still stands.
sounds like we've got a way to get there, so to speak. I think it's critical, though. I mean, obviously, the book provides a wealth of history. I think our intent, at least with the project as we've talked it through, is not to replicate that,
Right.
but to try to find, I guess, more of some of the changes that have evolved, both particularly with the community and its residents, the governments and their effect on that community. And then I think as important as anything, just to talk about the land itself. And because eventually, as you know, from discussions we've had about Westland Acres, there is interest in development. And eventually that interest is going to win out. It always does, as we found. It's not to say it's going to turn into a multiple family development with big box stores. I'm just saying eventually it isn't going to retain characteristics of the land that it's been able to while development has surrounded it. So I think the key for the commission, just to summarize, is to make sure we just don't replicate something that's
Right.
already there, but to provide another piece of the history in a different perspective.
Well, that's why I wanted to, bring it to your attention, of course, not knowing that you already had a copy, but we don't want to reinvent the wheel.
Exactly.
And so I wanted us to all be aware of what is out there.
Like I say, I kind of forgot about it. Then when I saw your book, it's like, oh yeah, we kind of wheeled and dealed and got one of those from one of the developers, and guess he thought that might be the success to get him the development through the process. So, but again, like I say, I think we can do something that's respectful of the community and will add a different perspective for those that, for the most part, may not be able to experience Westland Acres like you can now. So again, Madam Chair, if those 3 steps or sub-steps as I've described them are acceptable, the department would like a motion endorsing them. And then also as part of that motion, allowing you as chair to pick a couple of commission members to support our effort as we reach out for that initial meeting.
Jim?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand, say yes. Anyone opposed? Motion has passed.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Madam Chair, we'll coordinate with you and hopefully in April, we can begin that process.
That'd be good. Okay, the next item is Eston Log Cabin, and that was laying in front of you when you came in this evening. So I have not had a chance to look at it yet. Are you presenting on this tonight?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair and members of the commission, it wasn't the fault of Robin that you received it today versus as part of the rest of the packet of information. And it wasn't necessarily the department's fault as well. We were waiting for that last component from the consultant to add it to the overall cost estimate that's been provided. And that last component was the conversation between Pattern Ives and SWT Design on how they might integrate their 2 services to create a period landscape plan that Mr. Scott identified at our last meeting. And so from that perspective, we were able to obtain that late yesterday. With Robin reminding me, I was able to update the memorandum, and you received it hopefully as soon as we could provide it to you. But tonight, the department is presenting the cost estimate that's associated with, for all intents and purposes, to kind of close the loop on the log condition study and any additional research that might include. And I take that research to be part of the process of finding those additional logs that we need to basically fulfill the entirety of the cabin. As you'll recall, when the survey was done by Pattern Ives now several years ago, There were some missing logs that either weren't salvaged by the thief or weren't recovered after the thief took them. Then from there, we go to the preliminary design development, construction document, cost estimates, bidding, and construction administration. I asked, and it was part of the original response to the request for qualifications, that pattern knives also include as part of the proposal, construction administration. I think that's critical, that a entity with experience and knowledge is there while the reassembly is occurring, instead of, let's say, us as a commission or us as Department of Planning staff. Then, as mentioned, SWD Design did provide a cost estimate just under $8,700 for their services. So in total, project would be approximately $46,830. If we seek additional services, we can have a 3D visualization and rendering. I did not include that as part of the overall cost, just because it seems a bit of an extravagance to the department. In the recommendation, the department is supportive of the proposal. The department does have some reservations about the work from SWT Design, given that we have another set of consultants doing phase one for Village Green, and they have a landscape plan in association with that particular area, not only for the cabin, but for the concert venue, the entry area, et cetera, et cetera. It's not that the concept of a period landscape component isn't appropriate. It's just that we have a lump sum for 2023, $140,000 to accomplish the project. So any money we spend that isn't necessarily essential basically means that we have less for the actual reconstruction. So tonight you have an option. We can proceed forward with SWT Design as a recommendation to be part of the overall proposal, or if acceptable, we would not include it and proceed forward with our other set of consultants working on phase one of the Village Green, which does include a landscape component as well. So to summarize, Madam Chair and members of the commission, we do endorse Pattern and Knives proposal, which is just over $37,000. But we are wanting direction on the landscape item. Thank you.
Comments? Steve?
Okay. Since I was the one who suggested SWT, yeah, I have no objection to not including them. I would like this commission to look at what the landscape actual plan, and this is just the immediate vicinity and the landscape, the plantings and that. I wasn't aware that the your park planner was going to do all of the, he was doing the planning. He was going to do all of the specific landscaping and planting, but I have no problem with that as long as this commission can review it and maybe do a little research into what a garden and the immediate surrounding area would be like, or a cabin of that period. Maybe if it was the first year that cabin was built, there wouldn't be much around it. But we have to decide at what period we want to fix this in, what time, and what kind of planting would be around that cabin at that. So I have no objection, and I think their fee is quite reasonable. What they're offering to do. The additional services, the rendering and that, I don't think we need that. We're not selling this to anybody, except maybe the city council, and I don't think we need to spend their money or our money to sell this to them. So I don't think that's necessary, but their base bid, I think is a good bid and I believe they know what they're doing.
Madam Chair, with your permission, I will apologize to the commission for not providing the landscape plan. A lot of things are just coming in bunches of late. This week, CDI Civil Design, the engineering firm that is doing phase one for Village Green, provided the 75% drawings. So along with those came a much more refined landscape plan. So my apologies. Like I say, we were doing the process with Pattern and Ives. We got something from SWDZ's design. We also received this as well. To the commission, I offer you as much time as you need to review the landscape plan. Certainly, if you have some suggestions, please do. But you will notice on the landscape plan, they have created that walkway and the turf area at the edge of walkway to what they show as a small square, and that is the log cabin. And that location was flagged for all of you, and each of you, I think, had the opportunity to visit it. So they've done a pretty good job of at least setting the stage. So if you want to review the landscaping and make any alterations, that's certainly an option, and please feel free to. And then we'll take that back to their landscape consultants and get some feedback. There's a lot of things we still have to look at, from the stormwater management component, et cetera, et cetera. But we are still trying as best we can to complete at least the process so that we can begin the reassembly of the log cabin in 2023 and also bid phase one of the Village Green in 2023. I'm afraid that we're starting to lose that window to begin construction in 2023 of Village Green phase one, but I'm not ready to throw the towel in on that yet either.
Jim?
This land. Bid by CDI.
Yes, sir. Actually, it was Human Nature, the landscape architectural firm that did the master plan for Village Green and then did phase one for Village Greens. Exactly, sir. This is already on paper. I guess what I'm saying tonight, based upon Mr. Scott's comments, and I think a general feeling too, this is a great opportunity for the commission to weigh in on that landscaping component around the cabin.
I'm just curious why on the one side it is such a huge amount of large trees, because that's going to be really expensive. So it seems very, lax on the other side, and I don't know, it just seems like on the other side, and I don't know if there's a reason why they have so many large trees on it.
There's a couple of components, and I'll have to verify this, but my impression from conversations we've had with CDI and Human Nature, that area behind the cabin, there are a number of trees that are to be removed. There's a lot of silver maples, boxwood elders, what a lot of people would consider less than desirable trees, but certainly trees that in some instances have grown to a fairly good maturity. So I think the intent was to try to replicate those back with newer or native species, those that obviously maybe have a better aesthetic and aren't as, let's say, messy of trees. The other is just the formal pattern around the oval, try to create that. I would consider more of I guess, an aesthetic that's consistent with what we're trying to do there in terms of the venue for all of our events. But I can certainly explore that with them. And
Right. Just that, if you're concerned about those large trees are going to be an exorbitant amount of money, especially if you already have some large trees there. Possibly. I see you have the notation that some of the trees will still be there.
yes. Yes, and there's a tree stand delineation and tree preservation plan. Again, acknowledging we just got all of this week. So, and I just started to kind of look at it, public works planning, et cetera. But I'll do is I'll send you all the landscape components of the plan tomorrow. You can see the tree stand delineation, the tree preservation plan. And you obviously don't want to, I don't think you need to see the irrigation plan, things like that, but I'll give you the crux of what we've got. And you can kind of put it all into context as it relates to the cabin deck.
Bob?
Yeah, Joe, what's the normal process for reviewing an extensive landscaping plan that's as critical to the city as this one? And the reason I ask that is twofold. Number one, I think a period specific garden around a log cabin is quite likely to be a few vegetables and really not much else. And I'm not sure how much we need to weigh in on something like that. Honestly, most of the tree species that I see here on the tree list, as opposed to the Forbes, the flowers list on the next page, most of those are native, which is a great thing. I would question, they always specify cultivars. Quite often the cultivars have different characteristics than the traditional tree that's just growing in your yard. Persimmon, for example, they grow in groves. And so if you plant one, you're going to have 10 around them in a few years. The same with sassafras, except you're going to have 100 of them and you're not going to be able to kill them. And mowing over them just has a limited effect, and you wind up with a kind of an ugly area around them. I'm not going to get into a lecture on tree species and so forth, as much as I like to do that sort of thing. But I do think it's worth reviewing in a more general way. An arborist or something like that talks about the cultivars, because I'm not sure we're getting exactly what we're hoping to get with some of these tree species, completely separate from the plan around the cabin. And I would defer to the commission for their interest in ensuring that the trees that get planted around the cabin are species that have been here for 150 years. I'm not sure how important that is, just because we're not trying to replicate a museum quality cabin as much as we are trying to make a really great historical, sort of reference point or touchstone for the community. And nobody that visits that cabin is going to say, oh yeah, that's a great tree, but they weren't, here 150 years ago or whatever. So I said a lot there. Can you get an answer out of what I see?
Well, Councilmember Rambo, I'll do my best. First and foremost, I think a successful landscape plan is making sure that your overall consultant, if they're doing a sub-consultant, gets a good firm. And we've had a good experience with Human Nature. I'd like to think that they've taken into account a lot of what they learned over the year plus that they did the master plan, and then subsequently now working on phase 1. Suffice to say, in many regards, I feel that you're more of an expert than the department and some of the landscape architects we use on a regular basis to review submittals. So I'll welcome any comments you have regarding the cultivars and how best to address those concerns. But again, my point is, I think Human Nature is a good firm to give us a good landscape plan. How we tailor it to Wildwood and the goals we have now relative to natives and just making sure that we get what we want. I think that lies with the commission, representatives like you, and then we'll always send it out to, as you know, in terms of the tree stand delineation, Davy Resource Group did that, the tree preservation plan. We've had good success with them. I'll send this out to probably a landscape architect that I feel comfortable with to just give us a quick review and say yes or no. So there's a lot of steps in the process, but I would welcome anything you would like to add.
Okay. I mean, I'd be happy to participate in that, because that's, face to face or, direct discussions are the most useful and the most efficient. So I asked a question of the commission. What do y'all think? How important is it to ensure that these are, period correct trees, if such things exist, around the cabin when nobody's gonna notice.
Beth,
Yeah.
Okay,
I think you're right. If, yeah, I think looking at this plan, really, all we're probably looking at is a small kitchen garden. And perhaps, I don't know, since I'm not a gardener, a vegetable gardener, a local garden club, a group of people that are in the community garden. If somebody would be willing to maybe put in heirloom tomatoes or some historically accurate kitchen plants and maybe have a little demonstration garden there. Because unlike the rest of the parks that the grass needs to be cut and the trees need to be trimmed once a year, a garden needs a lot more attention. And I doubt if the city is willing and able to really maintain a garden, but perhaps a garden club or a group of volunteer gardeners would be willing to do that. But maybe just reserve a little spot there that a kitchen garden could go in. That would be my suggestion.
Well, if the commission concurs with you, Mr. Scott, that's a simple addition, certainly.
I apologize for dominating this conversation. I think that's exactly what I was thinking, but something you said keyed me to the reality that they didn't have to deal with 100 deer per square mile. And I'm not sure that, I don't know, maybe there's a historically accurate way for us to protect this garden that's becomes part of this installation.
That's good. Good point.
Inside slat, boards or something like that go up a certain height, and they just had to deal with bunnies. They couldn't, I don't know if there was chicken wire around there or not, or at that time or not, but.
They also had shotguns too.
You're speaking of the choir here, but yeah, so I think this is an opportunity to have it, it's another element of the education aspect of this log cabin that I think would be really great and be cheap too.
Given this plan, there's room for that. And that can be, I feel, discussed and worked on and hassled with later on. I'd just like to get the cabin up. I think we're well on our way to do that.
Well, if there's no objection from the chair, which manages the commission, I would invite Councilmember Rambo and Commissioner Scott. Commissioner Scott will be leaving us here in a bit to the next meeting we have on Zoom with our team from CDI and Human Nature. So you can at least voice your concerns and your suggestions to them directly. If you're willing to participate, you're more than welcome. I think that's the best approach. Bring the people that have the ideas to the people that have basically put them on paper.
Very happy to do it.
Yes, I would like that.
We're going to have a meeting probably in the next few weeks after we have a little more time to go through the 75% drawings. Because like I say, there's all the stormwater stuff and et cetera that will probably take a lot more time than I'm probably would hope, but we'll get there. So again, Madam Chair, if there's no objection, I'll invite the two commission members and we can kind of go from there with the landscape component. But tonight, again, I'm respectfully requesting endorsement of the Pattern Ives proposal minus SWT design and be able to take that to City Council at their meeting in April.
Very good. Any objections? Get to go.
Do you need a motion?
Yes, please.
I'd like to make the motion to support the Pattern and Ives proposal minus SWT designs as Joe stated.
Second. Oh, sorry.
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Thank you very much. That's exciting time.
It is very exciting time. And now we can get an idea of how we're doing with our different projects with the work program update.
Well, Chair Stevens, I really don't have much of an update for you, given that most items that had an update are on the agenda this evening. So if you have any questions about any of the items on our work plan, this is your opportunity, and we're happy to do our best to field them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's all under old business that we have this evening. So moving on to new business, we have two items. The first, a historic survey of properties for 2023 and 24.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. At our last meeting, I did promise that we would get our geographic information system software back and running, and we did. So I was able to proceed with this project. So on our current work program, we already thought ahead to survey properties in both that reached eligibility in 2023 and 2024. So first I went ahead and surveyed the properties that are currently eligible as of 2023. And so those addresses were provided to you. And those were structures that were built in 1948. However, since that number was so small, we then increased to 1949, and that number was still relatively small. So we thought, why not cleanly pull it through to 2025, which got us all properties built from 1948 to 1950, resulting in 43 properties, which would then allow us to say that we're up to date through 2025. So if that seems reasonable to you, then I would respectfully request a motion from this commission this evening to proceed with 43 properties, thereby updating our inventory through 2025 and also updating our work plan accordingly.
Do we hear a motion?
I so moved.
Second? Chris? Any other comments for Robin this evening on this? Okay, all those in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Okay.
Move forward.
Just as a quick follow-up, one last mention, we did reach out to several different firms, which are listed on the last page of this item. We have not yet received back any responses. We're still waiting to hear back. However, if the commission has any preferences as to a specific firm to work with, now is your time to offer it to the department to help guide us in our decision-making.
Were these three, well, these, whether 3 or 4,
There are 4 that I contacted.
those are ones you contacted and invited.
Yes.
Okay, but are you asking for qualifications from these 3?
There will not be a formal RFP. It's I believe it's a relatively low cost in the grand scheme of things. I believe we most recently worked with the Landmarks Association of St. Louis. They were our last firm. And then before that, we worked with the Preservation Research Office, but that surveyor is no longer with them.
So you would just negotiate the final.
That's correct. We
agreement with them.
generally,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I just briefly looked through all the qualifications. I mean, they're all good, so.
Okay. All right. Well, then if there are no further comments, that brings us to the end of that agenda item. Thank you very much.
This one is the Memorial Tribute Program.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair and members of the commission, as you may recall, Mr. Roughton at the last couple of meetings has brought up the issue of Mr. Wojciechowski and his untimely passing, and that the commission would like to recognize Mr. Wojciechowski's contributions to historic preservation and to the commission itself. Acknowledging that that's an opportunity I think we all would like to participate in. The department is presenting to you tonight the Memorial Tribute Program that the Historic Preservation Commission adopted approximately a year to a year and a half ago. And as part of that, Ms. Keefe, Mr. Newberry and I have provided you that table that was adopted to use as a guide to what level the recognition might be. In researching Paul's participation in the commission, as you can see, he was a commission member for 6+ years, 6 years, 3 months. During that tenure, he was the chair for 4 years, 8 months. Obviously, one of his major contributions, and one I think he almost single-handedly generated the enthusiasm we have now for the Route 66 roadside park, is the park project itself. I think you can all recall he brought in images from Springfield, Missouri, Joplin, across, I believe, components of the Oklahoma portion of Route 66. And basically, I think generated a lot of interest amongst the commission members and city personnel. Paul was a regular at our Celebrate Wildwood tent and helped those years with the presentation of information that we had. And if you weren't aware, Paul was on our Planning and Zoning Commission for many years and was a city council representative on 2 different occasions. So obviously he's done some things beyond just the commission itself. If you kind of calculate all of that, total it up, he would be eligible for Champion of Conservancy if the commission would concur. So tonight we're presenting you Paul's record relative to the 3 levels that are available and seeking direction on how the commission would like to proceed. Thank you.
And
Correct, yeah.
is there a second? Dan? Anyone else have comments or questions? Chris?
I question if we could or should do more. And I have thoughts of, could we do something with the roadside park with a bike rack that is in his honor, his name, or something to that effect. It might not be a bike rack, it might be something else, but he, as Joe said, he's the one who kind of brought that idea in front of all of us. And I'll be honest, I was in Arizona back in January and I drove right by a roadside park for Route 66. And I thought of Paul, like that to me, that's who he is now. So I'd like to, I absolutely agree. We could do a large brick at Old Pond School. Absolutely. But I think we could also maybe consider doing something more.
Okay. Yeah. It lists in there a tree, a brick. Is it either or is it both? Do you
Actually,
get 2 or do you get 1?
both.
You get both.
Yeah, so dedicating one of the trees in the new park, I think would be a nice concept.
Rather than.
Right. Right. Be very appropriate. Yes.
Well, I offer this. One of the large bricks that are engraved that go to Old Pond School for the patio area. I think they total somewhere around $250 to $300 to complete. If you don't mind, we'll look at maybe bringing back to you the next meeting an option for a bicycle rack in lieu of a brick. You can do that, given Paul's enjoyment of bicycling and all that he had done relative to our 11 community markers and basically creating a route for people to follow. So we can explore that. If the cost differential is small or none, then obviously the commission can make the decision. Is it a brick or is it a bike rack?
Well, I would say that we're going to have a bike rack in the park anyway.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be any more expense than just a little plaque on it. So
And if
maybe
you're
we
going
can-
to do that, just for people way down the road that may not know who he was, maybe put something on there about how he was you know, one of the.
Instrumental in getting the
Yeah,
park going.
something about how
Either approach, certainly, yes, we do intend to have bicycle racks. As you know, we are kind of trying to figure out how best to fund that project, given its current cost. So maybe, yes, maybe we wait on that and proceed forward, just as the list provides under the Champions of Conservancy, so we can do something, let's say, that's a little more timely relative to his passing. And certainly, as part of the record, know that when a bicycle rack is installed, maybe we could do something of a memorial there as well.
So we do have a motion and a second. Are there any more comments? Rob?
Feel like I'm dominating the conversation here a little bit, but I didn't know the gentleman, but he was universally well spoken of, to be grammatically incorrect. And I would like to suggest to the commission, who does have fond memories of him, that even though it's a private recognition, a recognition for private contributions and not public contributions, I think his family would appreciate a mayoral proclamation that Mayor Bolin often presents at council meetings, and it's a framed proclamation that extols his accomplishments and so forth, and presented to his family in a meeting. And I guess the proclamations are captured for posterity, and that's a way to further recognize him. It's a modest uplift in cost as far as I understand it, but maybe I'll want to think about something like that.
Yes, and if I failed to mention that, that is.
No, you did say that, but I'm suggesting that there's probably some leeway. I mean, we're not breaking the law by making him a private guy and giving him an additional recognition of a proclamation. That's all I'm suggesting. I don't think so. I wouldn't think so. Joe can answer.
No, I believe the mayor has complete authority, but as you recall, we were kind of going back and forth on how best to address those individuals in our community that do exemplary work for preservation purposes. We wanted to recognize people that had been part of this commission or had been an elected or appointed official that had worked tirelessly for preservation purposes. So I believe Mr. Wojciechowski would fall under the public participant, because there are people out there, like in the case of Ms. Von Gruben or Lisa Kelp, who have never been on this commission or never been an elected or appointed official, but have done a lot outside the confines of the city to do the same thing. And so as part of that, there are 6 components for the public participants, one of which is a proclamation by City Council.
If you look on the reverse side of the page, it continues, and the
Oh, I missed that.
yeah, and so the proclamation is included in the continuation there.
And just so the commission is aware, I did send an email today to Mayor Bolin advising of our discussion tonight, because I know he had talked about wanting to do something for Mr. Wojciechowski as well. So that proclamation may just be a perfect approach. So thank you for the suggestion, Councilmember Randall.
I believe we need to take a vote on the motion that's on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It has passed. It's well deserved. Now, I have a question. I remember when I first came on the commission, there was a lady, her name was Judy. I don't remember what her last name was. And she had passed away, but had been on the commission for quite some time. And there was talk at that time of when we got the perimeters for the recognition that we would also be considering her.
Judy Som.
Yes, that's it.
Yes, she was integral in the incorporation effort, was our first treasurer here at the city of Wildwood after the incorporation, and then served many years on the Historic Preservation Commission. We can do some research and kind of develop a little profile so you can understand her contributions as well. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Okay, oh, I believe we're moving on now to other matters for consideration. Well, I have some good news for you, a surprise. Just about a year ago now, we had learned that we were getting the McReynolds Award presented to us in Jefferson City, and how exciting that was. Surprised because Robin had done all the back work on it and had filled out the forms. And I believe, Robin, didn't you say that we did not receive the award that you had originally applied for, that they had moved us up a notch or two?
That is
And
correct.
So that was really great. And the day in Jefferson City was just terrific. Well, we're being honored again, not by the state, but by the Daughters of the American Revolution in their historic preservation. And I had nothing to do with this. It is my DAR chapter. How it came about, after we had the points of interest maps, our regent is originally from the Ellisville area, and her 90-some-year-old mother still lives there. And Barb takes her mother on an outing every Thursday or Friday, and sometimes both days. And just to see different things in the area. Mom doesn't drive anymore. And I have a wonderful daughter, I'll tell you. But I gave Barb one of our maps. And I said, you might want to use this when you're taking Mom for her outings. They did. They came out and they went to some of the historic markers, got out, read what they had to say. When they got to Stovall's, and they drove on over to the Wildwood Historic Society, but it was not a day when anyone was there. So Mom didn't walk too much around the building because she's a little teetery at times. But Barb walked around, looked in windows, and said that they really enjoyed it. Then she had one complaint. They couldn't find the cycling marker out there off of Old Manchester. And I said, good luck, I haven't either. But so that's how it all came about. They said, with what information is on that points of interest map is so fantastic. And I know we all agree with her, that they wanted to give an award. And so it is a national award presented by the National Society. The chapter then presents it to their nominee. So we have been approved. And on April the 15th, hopefully Dan and Alan and I will represent. And I haven't heard whether Robin or Joe, I don't think the invitations possibly have been mailed. I got mine by email. You know, you save all the money you can on postage. And so being a member, mine came by email, and it just came in late last night. So you'll be getting the invitations. And so that's, I hate to say it's icing on my DAR cake, but well, in I don't remember. No, in 2009, I believe it was. I was surprised when I was named honorary chapter regent. And so that's the icing on my DAR page. But I consider this to be the decorations on that frosting on the cake. I'm not trying to take any of the honor away from the commission at all, because this is what it's all about, historic preservation. So that, as I said, it's been approved, and the mission of DAR, in case you're not that familiar with it, is number one, historic preservation. It's patriotism and education. Well, I don't know about you, but I think we fall into all three of those categories. You know, we're educating people, we're patriotic, we're part of the city, and of course, we're the history preservation. So I'm really, really excited and very proud that we are being honored. So I've kind of kept it under the hat. Some people have known, but just a few. And I said, shh, don't tell anyone yet. I want to announce it. So that's just part of the special presentation this evening. I know it's been mentioned a few times that this is Steve's last official duty with the commission. And we're gonna miss you, Guy.
Well, I think I'll be sitting out there.
Oh, dear. Either that or you'll be the public comment at the beginning of the meeting. That would be great. We
So, no,
will appreciate that. That's for certain.
So-
But we tried to think of some way to say goodbye. Well, that we don't really say goodbye because you're still around. So Travis, do you have something to put up on the screens for us tonight?
all of these places.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I mean, and no, I just, I will miss it. And I really enjoyed the time I've spent here. I've learned a lot and
You've taught a lot too.
That's
well,
right.
I just can't stop talking, that's all. So,
We're glad.
and when I don't know something, I make it up, so. But I was going to suggest you might invite them to be in the if they're interested in the treasure, the scavenger.
Oh,
That would-
their attention.
If a 90-year-old woman is willing to do that, but I hope I am when I'm 90 in a few years. So thank you very much. I appreciate it and thank you for putting it together.
Archive, she comes up with good photos. Now, there's one more thing, and that is that we're going to give you a job. And with that job is for you to close tonight's meeting. So you've done it before when I wasn't available. And so want to hand over the gavel so that you can close the meeting officially.
Well, there's no objections.
Need a motion.
I will make a motion to close the meeting.
So move.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Closed. Thank you very much.